The blade was already in motion when I moved. I didn't think. There was no time for thought, no room for calculation. One moment I was standing 3 paces behind Queen Valeth during the trade summit, watching the consortium delegates bow with practiced precision. The next, I saw the glint, a needle-thin assassin's blade emerging from Ambassador Kethral's sleeve, aimed at the space between her shoulder blades, where her ceremonial armor offered no protection. My body made the decision my mind couldn't process. I threw myself between them, twisting to shield her with my torso. The blade meant for her spine found my side instead, sliding between my ribs with a cold, surgical precision that I felt before I understood. The great hall of the Valanthi homeworld erupted into chaos. Guards swarmed the ambassador, their energy weapons singing. Delegates scattered like startled birds. But I heard none of it, only the wet sound of my own breathing and the strange, distant sensation of my legs refusing to hold my weight. I hit the polished obsidian floor hard. Human! Queen Valeth's voice cut through the noise. I'd served as her diplomatic attaché for 11 months, and I'd never heard that tone before. Not when the Crix threatened war. Not when the plague ship breached quarantine. Something raw lived in that single word. Her face appeared above me, all sharp angles and luminescent violet skin, her crown of living silver catching the light as she knelt. The Valanthi didn't kneel. Not for anyone. I'd learned that in my first week. "Why did you do that?" she demanded. Her 4-fingered hand pressed against my side, and I watched her recoil slightly at the warmth of human blood. "You're bleeding. There's so much." "Poisoned blade," I managed. The words came harder than they should have. "Saw the color on the edge. You need to get clear. Might be more. I'm not leaving you." "Your Majesty." I said no. Her guards tried to pull her away. I watched her bare her teeth at them. A threat display I'd only seen once before, when a Crix warlord had insulted her lineage. They backed off. The ceiling above me was beautiful. Carved from a single piece of crystal, it showed the formation of the Valanthi Empire in flowing, luminous lines. I'd spent hours studying it during boring negotiations. Seemed like an odd thing to focus on while dying. "Stay awake." Her voice again, closer now. Her hand found mine, and I felt her flinch at the contact. Valanthi didn't touch casually. Touch was reserved for family, for mates, for the deepest bonds. "Human, Marcus, stay awake." She'd never used my name before. "Trying," I said. Or thought I said. The words and the thoughts were getting tangled together, and the crystal ceiling was starting to blur at the edges. 11 months. 11 months of standing behind her in meetings, of translating human idioms, of explaining why humans laughed at things the Valanthi found confusing. 11 months of being the lowest-ranking member of her entourage, the token human in a court that barely acknowledged my species existed. And now I was bleeding out on her floor, and she was holding my hand, and none of it made any sense. "Medical team is coming," she said. "Hold on." I tried to say something reassuring. Something about how it was fine, how I'd made my choice, how she shouldn't blame herself. But the darkness at the edges of my vision had other ideas. The last thing I saw before it took me was her face, and the expression on it that I couldn't name. I woke to pain. Not the sharp, immediate pain of the blade going in. This was different, deeper, more pervasive, like my entire body had become a bruise. I tried to move, and immediately regretted it. "Don't." Height. A command, not a request. I knew that voice. I forced my eyes open. The light was softer here, filtered through some kind of membrane that gave everything a blue-green tinge. Medical bay, my foggy brain supplied. Valanthi design. Queen Valeth sat beside my bed. She wore no crown, no ceremonial robes, just a simple gray shift that I'd never seen her in before. Her hands were folded in her lap, and her eyes were fixed on my face with an intensity that made me want to look away. "How long?" I asked. My voice came out as a croak. 3 days. The poison was engineered specifically for Valanthi physiology. Your human biology gave the antidote time to work. But the damage... She paused. It was extensive. 3 days. I tried to process that. 3 days of her sitting here, apparently, unless she'd just arrived. But something about the shadows under her eyes and the rumpled state of her shift suggested otherwise. The ambassador? Executed. The consortium has formally apologized and offered significant reparations. Her lip curled slightly. They seemed surprised that I prioritized finding an antidote for you over negotiating with them. I blinked. You delayed negotiations? For me? The negotiations can wait. You could not. That didn't make sense. I was a junior diplomatic attaché, a human, barely tolerated by half her court, actively disliked by the other half. The trade agreement with the consortium had been months in the making, and was worth billions in resources. Your Majesty, the treaty will be there when you've recovered. Her voice brooked no argument. I will not discuss it further. Silence stretched between us. I became aware of the soft beeping of monitors, the distant hum of the station's systems, the sound of my own labored breathing. Everything felt fragile, temporary, like the moment might shatter if either of us moved. "Why did you do it?" she asked finally. The question seemed pulled from somewhere deep, somewhere she hadn't wanted to go. The blade was meant for me. You knew that. You saw it coming, and you chose to intercept it. Why? I don't know, I said honestly. I didn't think. I just moved. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. She stood abruptly, and for a moment I thought she was going to leave. Instead, she paced to the viewport and stood there, her back to me, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. "Valanthi do not do what you did," she said quietly. "We value survival, self-preservation. It's how we built an empire, by being practical, by calculating costs and benefits, by never sacrificing ourselves for others without clear return." She turned to face me. "What you did makes no sense. You're human. Your species is barely a footnote in galactic politics. Your life expectancy is a fraction of mine. You had nothing to gain and everything to lose. Maybe that's not how humans think. Then how do humans think? Explain it to me, because I have spent 3 days trying to understand and I cannot." I shifted, trying to find a position that didn't make my sides scream. "You're my queen." "I'm not. I'm the queen of Valanthi. You're a diplomatic attaché on loan from Earth's government. You owe me no more loyalty than any other visiting dignitary." "You're my queen," I repeated, more firmly this time. "I've spent 11 months watching you navigate impossible situations. I've seen you choose mercy when cruelty would have been easier. I've seen you stay up for days to find a solution that didn't involve war. I've seen you remember the names of servants, the birthdays of guards, the preferences of the lowest-ranking members of your staff." I paused, gathering strength. "You asked why I did it. That's why. Because you're worth protecting. Because some people are." She stared at me. I'd never seen a Valanthi look confused before. Their faces were usually so controlled, so precise. But something in her expression had cracked open, revealing uncertainty beneath. "You barely know me," she whispered. "I know enough." She returned to the chair beside my bed. When she sat, she was closer than before, close enough that I could see the faint luminescence under her skin that indicated emotional distress. "The physician says you'll recover," she said. "But there will be scarring. The poison did damage that can't be fully repaired. You may have pain for the rest of your life. Okay. That's all you have to say? Okay. What else is there to say? It happened. I do it again." She made a sound I'd never heard from a Valanthi before, something between a laugh and a sob. You humans are insane. Probably. I managed a weak smile. But we're loyal. Her hand found mine again. This time, she didn't flinch. The pain woke me in the night. I'd been warned about this. The physician said the damaged nerves would take time to settle, that there would be flares, that the only solution was time and rest. But knowing something intellectually and experiencing it were different things. I bit down on my lip to keep from crying out, curling around my wounded side, breathing through my teeth. The monitors beside my bed began beeping in alarm, and I reached out to silence them before anyone could. Don't. She was still there. Still in that gray shift, still in that chair, her eyes bright in the darkness. You should be sleeping, I managed. Your Majesty, you have duties. My duties can accommodate sitting here. I wanted to argue, but another wave of pain stole my breath. I felt sweat break out on my forehead, felt my hands start to shake. This was the worst it had been since I'd woken up. The physicians can give you something stronger, she said. For the pain, no way. I forced the word out through gritted teeth. The stronger medications make me, not myself. I don't want that. Why? Why? What does it matter if you sleep through the worst of it? Because you're here. The words came out before I could stop them. If I'm drugged unconscious, I'm not. I can't what? Protect you. The answer was absurd. What protection could I offer? Barely able to move, hollowed out by poison and pain. But the instinct was there anyway, irrational and unshakable. Just don't want to, I said instead. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked me more than any words could have. She moved from the chair to the edge of my bed, close enough that I could feel the cool radiation of her skin. Valanthi bond rarely, she said softly. Once, perhaps twice in a lifetime, and only with those we have known for decades. The bond is ice. It creates vulnerability, weakness. My mother warned me against it, said it was a liability for a queen. Your Majesty, I am trying to explain something. Her voice carried an edge of frustration. For 3 days, I have sat here and watched you breathe. I have counted your heartbeats on the monitor. I have refused to leave even when my advisors demanded it, even when the consortium threatened to walk away from negotiations, even when every rational part of my mind told me that you are one human, one small life, and I have an empire to rule. She turned to look at me, and in the dim light, her eyes were vast and deep. 3 days ago, I did not understand why you took that blade. Now I think perhaps I do. She paused. Because I would do the same for you, and that terrifies me. I stared at her. My side was still burning, still sending waves of fire through my nervous system, but it seemed very far away suddenly. That doesn't make sense, I said. I'm nobody. You are not nobody. You are the human who stood behind me for 11 months and never asked for anything, who learned our customs and our language and never complained about the courtiers who mocked you, who remembered that I prefer my tea with starflower honey, that I find consortium negotiations exhausting, that I retreat to the crystal gardens when I need solitude. Her hand found my cheek, cool and steady. You saw me. Not the crown. Not the power. Me. Of course I did. That's who you are. No one has ever. She stopped, started again. My entire life, I have been the throne. The symbol. Away. The empire. No one has ever looked at me and seen a person first. The pain was still there, but it seemed to matter less now. Then everyone else is blind. She made that sound again, the laugh sob that seemed uniquely hers. You should rest. So should you. I will rest when you're well enough to tell me to leave. I managed a weak laugh of my own. Then you're going to be here a while. Yes. She didn't move from the edge of my bed. I believe I am. I slept. And when I woke to pain again, she was still there, her hand still cool against my feverish skin. 6 weeks later, I stood in the crystal gardens where Queen Valeth liked to retreat. My side still ached, would always ache, the physician said, but I could walk now, could stand, could almost pretend to be whole. She found me there as the artificial sun began its programmed descent, casting long shadows through the geometric trees. You should be resting. I've been resting for 6 weeks. I turned to face her. She was dressed formally now, crown and robes and all the trappings of power. The treaty with the consortium had been signed that morning. Congratulations on the agreement. Thank you. She moved to stand beside me, looking out at the gardens. My advisors are concerned about you. Let me guess. The human who saved my life is fine, but he's becoming too familiar. Something like that. They're right to be concerned. I studied her profile, the sharp lines of her jaw, the elegant sweep of her neck, the way the dying light caught the silver in her crown. I am too familiar. I crossed lines I shouldn't have crossed. Did you? I'm a diplomatic attaché. You're a queen. There are protocols, rules, reasons why those rules exist. I took a breath. I should request a transfer. Yes. She didn't look at me. That would be the proper thing to do. It would solve several problems. It would. Silence stretched between us. The artificial sun continued its descent, painting the crystal trees in shades of amber and rose. My advisors, she said finally, have suggested several suitable matches for me. Other rulers, powerful lords, strategic alliances. They've been suggesting them for years, actually, but I've always found reasons to delay. She paused. Do you know why? No. Because not one of them has ever looked at me the way you do. Like I'm a person. Like I matter beyond what I can provide. She turned to face me. You took a blade for me, Marcus. You nearly died. And when you woke up, your first concern was for the trade negotiations you thought I might have damaged by staying at your side. That's my job. No, Tyan. Your job is to facilitate cultural exchanges and translate diplomatic documents. Taking assassins' blades is not in your contract. I couldn't help but smile. Maybe it should be. I don't want you to request a transfer. The words hung in the air between us, heavier than they should have been. Your Majesty, Valeth. She said it firmly. When we're alone, Valeth, Valeth. The name felt strange on my tongue, precious. What are you saying? I'm saying that I sat by your bed for 3 days and discovered that I would burn my empire to the ground before I let anyone hurt you again. I'm saying that my mother was right. Bonding is a vulnerability, a weakness, a liability. She met my eyes. I'm saying that I don't care. The court will never accept it. The court will learn to accept what I tell them to accept. I'm human. I'll age. I'll die long before you. Then we will have whatever time we have. She reached out, took my hand. Her fingers were cool and steady, her grip firm. I've spent my entire life being practical, calculating costs and benefits, choosing the sensible path. Her voice softened. For once, I want to choose something simply because I want it. Because he stood in front of a blade for me and asked for nothing in return. I looked at our joined hands, her violet skin against my brown, her 4 fingers wrapped around my 5. It shouldn't have worked. Nothing about it should have worked. The scar still hurts, I said quietly. Every day. The physicians say it always will. I know. You'll have to deal with that. With me being limited. Being less than I was. You are not less than anything. Her free hand came up to touch my side, gentle over the place where the blade had gone in. This is not a weakness. This is proof. that you chose me, that when the moment came, you didn't hesitate. I would do it again, I said, every time, without question. I know. She smiled, a real smile, warm and unguarded in a way I'd never seen from her before. That's why I'm choosing you. She kissed me then, in the crystal gardens, as the artificial sun completed its descent and the stars began to emerge. Her lips were cool against mine, and she tasted like starflower honey and something else, something uniquely her. Above us, the crystal trees caught the starlight and scattered it into 1,000 glittering pieces, and I thought about how strange the universe was. How a blade meant for a queen had somehow, impossibly, given me something I'd never expected to find. A home, a purpose, a person who saw me. When we finally parted, she kept hold of my hand. Come, she said, there's much to do, and I find I do not want to do any of it without you beside me. I followed her out of the gardens, into whatever future awaited us. My side ached with every step. I had never been happier.
Es día del niño, cabrón. Qué pinche vergüenza me das. Te mandé el video, Anita. Una cena. Estaría, güey. Una cena, ¿no? Puro migajero. Chingada madre. ¿Qué van a pensar la nueva gente que anda por parte de Twitch aquí, güey? Que somos migajeros, cabrón.